Four, three, two, one. Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Tomes and Tunes. This is episode 21, and I am your host, Arielle Silver. I am very happy to welcome to this episode of Talking Books and Swapping Songs, songwriter and pianist Rachel Solomon, all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm going to bring her in right now. If you are just tuning in, make sure you say hi in the chat box so we can see you. And if you're watching on the replay, say hi as well. Here we go. Where's Rachel? Hello, Rachel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to see you.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you know what I was noticing when we were both chatting in the green room a few minutes ago was that we have really awesome patterns behind us.
Yeah, well, yours is really I don't know, like
Vertical.
well, yeah, but it's online appropriate. People who do a lot of streaming and videos have nice lights, and that's I've been very slowly getting to that level. Thankfully, I have an attractive bookcase.
Yeah, I mean squares.
Mhm.
Classic, right? Brady Bunch. What is that? Hollywood Squares.
Yeah.
It works, Rachel.
Mhm.
um, so hi, welcome to the show. I'm really happy to have you here. And
Thank
we were
you.
just talking about just to catch everybody else up. We were just talking about sort of life in the time of COVID for you, because you, I know a little bit about your career, and you have been a touring artist. You've been a performing singer-songwriter, but also a keyboardist for other bands, and you also do this whole piano bar thing that you've done for as long as we've known each other, which is a long time.
Actually, that's true. My first real experience with piano bar was in Boston over 15 years ago.
Remind me of that place. It was
It was like a cabaret piano bar. So it was really theater oriented, which isn't really my background, but that's it was in the theater district. It
yeah.
was in what was the Tremont Hotel, which is no longer the Tremont Hotel in Boston, I'm pretty sure. And that bar is long gone also from what I've heard.
Womp womp.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I've been working in piano bars the last couple of years, so maybe something like it will come back.
Yeah.
But that particular one was no more, as far as I knew.
I remember it being, and this is probably just completely made up, but like every Thursday you were there at that
Yeah,
piano
it
bar.
was a
Was it
weekly gig. It was
Yeah,
every Wednesday, I think. But it
Wednesday.
was,
Okay.
yeah, it was a weekly. They had their people on assigned days.
And I went down there a couple of times, and you ruled the
Oh,
room. I mean, it was really fun.
it was good. I mean, that was that was my first kind of schooling in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I always had good ears, so I could always retain a lot of different kinds of songs. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think of then, compared to some of my experiences now. I mean, I don't remember any experiences then where I was like, yes, I've done it, and I have them in the palm of my hand, and I feel like I have been able to do that in the last like couple of years. But I'm glad you have fond memories of playing there. I have fond memories of playing there. So.
Yeah, I definitely do. And I can imagine, I mean, after, if that was the beginning and you've done it all this time, that, you know, you've only gotten better. Actually, I've seen
I
what
would
you've done
hope.
online on the live streams just in the COVID times, and it's really fun, even just, being on a screen. But besides the piano bar stuff, you've toured a little bit, and I was reading your bio in prep for the show, and I was really struck by Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
What was that?
So I've been in Nashville for 15 years, and there was a band that brought me here. They hired me to tour with them, and it was a country rock band called Mustang Sally, like the song. And our tour schedule was made up of, it ran the gamut. It was bars and casinos, it was headlining festivals internationally sometimes, and going to Guantanamo Bay was a gig with that band. We went twice. I think one was kind of around Christmas and holiday time, because I remember there were a lot of Christmas decorations, and we might have been in a parade or something. And the second time it was a festival, and we were on the same bill as Puddle of Mud, like the huge rock band. and Drowning Pool, the even harder rock band. We weren't, I mean, we were like a country rock band, but yeah, we went there for 2 different events, and both times it was awesome. And it was before, I mean, we did not go into actual Cuba. We stayed on the base, you know, but it was still one of the more memorable experiences of my touring.
Interesting. And where else have you been of note for yourself? Like what places do you think about, like, oh yeah, there was something about it for you?
Well, with that same band, actually, within the first year I was in the band, we went to Asia twice. And that's still the only time I've been to that part of Asia. I mean, I've been to Russia once, but that was way far from where we were in Korea and Japan. Visiting there has always stuck with me. And more recently, I've spent some time in Norway. And
That's right. I saw Norway was on your list as well, and that's a place I've always wanted to go.
It's worth going. I really, really recommend it. I've been there for little bits at a time, like if I was playing on a cruise ship and we popped in and out. But I've also been there for extended weeks doing piano bar. And I remember this very small town that I played in. I played at a piano bar in a hotel, and I was thinking of it today. It was on this beautiful lake, and there's a mountain, and every half hour the weather changed. It was snow flurries, then it was sunny, then it was raining, and but I've never been able to think so clearly than when I was there.
And why do you think that is?
I made a point, I mean, especially doing piano bar stuff, a lot of it has been alone, especially if it's a solo piano bar situation, which that was. So I made a point to turn off the phone and social media for a more extended period than I do regularly. I think that definitely helped. I was also just in this really serene, environment. In a way, unlike anything I've been around before. So just kind of, I wanted to take that all in a very, authentic and complete way, I think.
Yeah. So when you're playing piano bars, do you play any original music, or is it strictly requests and known songs?
I rarely play original music. Especially, if it's been like a dueling, so 2 people playing against each other. I don't think I've ever played an original song. But when it's just me and I'm doing solo piano bar, sometimes, and this has happened enough times to take note, sometimes people will research me before and they'll actually slip me a little request slip, and they're requesting my song. So that I'm always very touched when people take the time to do that.
Yeah.
So it does happen every now and then.
And how do you feel about that? Do you mind? Do you love playing other people's music? Do you love playing your own? Do you have any feelings one way or the other, or is it just like it's all music and it's just what the gig calls for?
I discovered that when I started in the last 4 or 5 years, when I started doing a lot of piano bar, I discovered that it was just as fulfilling playing other people's songs because of the audience's reaction to them. So one of many things that has been really rewarding for piano bar is that, for me doing piano bar, is that doing all these songs, when people request these songs, a lot of the times it's because it means something to them.
Yeah.
And so people's, joyful or whatever kind of response, that ends up being, I find, almost, if not equally as rewarding as when I'm playing my own music.
That makes sense.
I mean, I know plenty of songwriters don't feel that way and really don't have interest in other people's music.
Yeah.
You've
always had in your, I just pictured in your head a whole encyclopedia of other music to play in addition to your own stuff.
Yeah, I was always able to retain songs and song forms and chord changes fairly well, especially when it came to popular music.
Yeah.
So that sort of preconditions me for a job like that a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very rewarding in a lot of ways.
And when it comes to your own writing, first of all, have you been writing this year? This is a really strange year. I find it to be. I mean, like everybody, it's just layers upon layers upon layers of things happening this year, magnified, right? um, has your own writing process changed? Are you writing? Are you not writing this year? What's a typical year for you as a songwriter?
You know, I don't think I had thought about it until right now.
Hmm.
I'm trying to look for like a notebook or something in here. Well, I was going to say I haven't written at all,
Yeah.
but I realized that's not true because I've been writing sort of comedy music. So, you know, I don't think I've been, yeah, I don't think I've written anything that was to be taken super seriously this year,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. But you do have, you have, for example, that video that I was watching earlier this week about the masks,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have this whole other musical comedy side of you, which I feel like it's so integrated, but now that I'm thinking about it, you probably don't necessarily bring that into the piano bar world. And you're making a distinction between that music and your serious singer-songwriter music.
Yes.
But it definitely is an art. Like you've been doing that for a while now.
Yeah. You know, I think that plenty of the comedy bits actually do make their way into piano bar. And that's one thing that has made it enjoyable for me. I mean, it depends on the type of piano bar. You know, there is more serious piano bar, and then there's more kind of wacky spectacle piano bar. And I sort of like to walk the line a little bit because people are often there to have fun. It's very interactive. It can be very interactive, especially with people making requests.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do make a distinction between my serious songwriter music and the comedy music, even
Yeah.
though, you know, the skill set it comes from the same place, I guess. But yeah, I received like a weekly update from Apple Music, which honestly I'd prefer not to receive because I don't want to see how many listens my music is or is not getting.
Yeah.
And after I released the mask, I put on a mask video, at which I wrote, by the way, I wrote that song in response to someone else who had already written a song about wearing masks. But I got an update that week, and I was expecting that song to have a lot of plays, and it didn't. My serious music had more plays. So I'm not sure why that happened or how that worked out, but it kind of made me feel good.
So you wrote the mask song, comedy song, in response to someone else's song. What was the other song saying? Don't wear a mask. I don't want to wear a mask. Or
No,
'cause
it
yours
was
is very much like wear a mask.
So yeah, you know, I don't think of my song really as a PSA. Is that the
Yeah.
right term?
Yeah,
I
public
don't
service
really,
announcement.
Yeah, I don't really think of it that way. I sort of think of it as more like, well, here is when I don't wear it, and this is why it explores.
I don't wear it in the car,
Right.
Because I'm mostly alone.
And I see people wearing it in the car, and I think you don't have to do it right now. But somebody I know who I have done piano bar with, someone I know a little bit. His name's Tom McGovern, and he's an actor and a songwriter and a performer. But he wrote a much more explicitly clear song. I'm not going to curse on your show, but it was, you know, shut the blank up and put on your mask was the song. And I was just like, this is great. I watched it a million times, and for some reason just felt creatively inspired to respond in a less I don't know, ice-breaking way.
You do have a few F-bombs in the song.
Yeah, well, yes, because that's the lyric of the original.
Yeah,
but
okay. I'm
but in
glad
my
to know where it came from now. It's interesting.
right. Yeah, and in my song, it's bleeped out, and there is no uncensored version.
So this is actually a good segue because we're talking about your comedy stuff, but you mentioned that the book that you have to read a passage from today is a comedic book? What is this book? Is this what you've been reading lately, or?
It's, you know, I haven't read this in several years. My mom gave this to me as a gift probably for Christmas or my birthday, which are just a couple days apart, several years ago. And I don't know why she gave this to me, but it's by the author George Saunders, and it's a collection of his essays just in response to cultural things, global things. And I mean, this book is at least, I mean, let me see what the year is on here. So it's not a current, event book, but there's this passage in here that I've always remembered because it made me cry with laughter at the time. 2007, okay, is the year on this book. And the excerpt, it referred to a pop song of the time. And it sort of makes up its own song lyric to that song, which is not that far off from what the song lyric in the song was. Shall I read?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
And yeah.
So here, I'll
And
read
I'll just say, actually, before you start reading, folks, if you are tuning in right now, just say hi in the comments box so we can see you. Hi, Mark from Dallas. Nice to see you. And Dolly and Feder. And who else we got here? I see Aiden and Nina. So if y'all are here, say hi. And okay, Rachel, let's hear it.
Okay. Things just keep getting worse. Why, I suspect that in 40 years, when I'm 87, I'll look back at the present level of sex and violence and go, ha, ho, ho, you called that sex and violence? That was nothing. That was Puritanism and pacifism compared to now. But then I'll have to go because it'll be stripper night at the old folks' home. And I'll have to find my costume and my back brace. I didn't read this in preparation. But on the way there, I'll be killed by a mysterious old folks' home invader who actually works for Fox, and is committing and filming my murder for later broadcast on When Codgers on their way to strip look terrified. The same with music, though, right? I used to love music back when it had melody and chords and lyrics. But now it has no melody and no chords, just thwacking. And they even seem to be cutting back on the thwacking. So now it's sometimes just thwa. And as far as lyrics, do you consider these lyrics? Hump, my stumpy, lumpy hump. Hump my dump, you lumpy, slumpy dump. I'll dump your hump, and then just hump your dump, you lumpy, frumply clump. I'm sorry, to me, those are not lyrics. In my day, lyrics were used to express real emotion, like the emotion of being totally stoned and trying to talk this totally stoned chick into sleeping with you in the name of love, which lasted forever. If only you held on to your dreams. Kids these days, I don't know what they believe. Oh my God. That's not far off to what the lyrics were to that song. So.
No, I know exactly. That's so funny. I saw him speak he was a keynote speaker at a conference I went to a few years ago.
Oh my goodness.
And he was phenomenal. He was so great. And I, of course I was, that fool with my phone, like just trying to record the audio the whole time. And then as I always end up doing at some point, I was like, I need more space on my phone, delete, but before I deleted it, I listened back to the keynote, and it was just inspiring and fantastic, and that's really funny. I don't know that book, though, that you just read from.
I just did like a quick Google search about him because I don't really know anything about him at all. And, of all the books that were definitely mentioned, that was not one of them. So
yeah, what's the name of that book one more time?
It's called The Brain Dead Megaphone. It's a collection of essays.
Okay. Awesome. That's so funny. Someone recently, I feel like this has come up a lot, but, especially this year with all of the events that have been happening, a number of people have said, where's the protest music nowadays? Where's the politically charged music or the music calling for change? And these are inevitably people who grew up on the folk song, protest song, pop music of the 60s and 70s, late 60s, 70s. And, it's been there the whole time. There's been a lot of music often has social commentary and political commentary, and some genres more than others, but for sure in the hip hop genre, there's been a lot forever. And then also other places.
Yes, I was just thinking, I know where it is. I know songwriters who are doing just that.
Yeah.
It's not in pop music.
Yeah, it's not in pop music. Yeah, the radio has sort of narrowed and ever more narrowed um, the spectrum of what it will play. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're looking to pop radio for it, you're not going to find it. But yeah, but there is and has been a lot over the years.
Mm-hmm.
For yourself as a songwriter, do you feel like you tend to write in, I don't know, on this is kind of a weird question because I don't think anybody's ever asked me, and I haven't contemplated it myself, but do you tend to write along certain thematic lines? For example, you write, well, besides the humor stuff, right? Putting that stuff aside for a second, you know, you write thematically about love, or you write thematically about politics, or you write thematically about, is there something that you feel? It's a hard question.
Yeah, I think thematically in general, I write about self.
Yeah,
Um, I don't. The short answer is thematically, I don't write about politics. However, I did feel, for some reason, inspired to write my song Baltimore, which was about the death of Freddie Gray in custody of the Baltimore police.
yeah,
And it surprised me when I wrote that song because I've always been very uncomfortable writing songs about social events, tragedies. It always felt like capitalizing on the tragedy to me. And I mean, with the number of protest songs that exist, and its existence in culture and in music, obviously I'm in the minority when it comes to that thought. Um, so that's with the exception of that song.
yeah,
Usually I just don't feel that. I don't know if I don't feel it's my place or it just makes me uncomfortable. It feels like I'd be imposing.
yeah. It's funny. There's this. I wasn't gonna read a passage from this book, but I read it. Well, anyway, it's Miriam Gerba's memoir, Mean, and she talks about that idea that you just said, that sort of almost like appropriating tragedy for. I mean, there's a line between it because you can create art that is meaningful and important
I
out
know
of tragic events, but then you could cross that line and have it sort of like you're mining those
Yes.
tragedies. I hear what you're saying.
I feel like, a large portion of the listeners, the audience who, hear a song like that are thankful for a song like that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for writing about and just for some reason I'm always just like, I just never feel really good about it.
Yeah, yeah, I get that, and it's great to hear an artist articulate that. Actually, I thought for some reason if I opened this book that I would fall right to the passage where the writer talks about that thing, but of course that's not going to happen.
Well, I'm sort of relieved to know somebody else has considered that, and it's not
Yeah.
just me going, this makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, 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 no. And I think as artists, we kind of have to find our own way, and even writers of that commercial pop music that we were talking about before. As artists, we've got to kind of work with the material that we're drawn to from a creative standpoint for music, but that doesn't encompass all of the, like, that's not reflective, I should say, of everything, all the parts of ourselves. Yeah, there are things that I don't write about, right, for various reasons. I think I'll read this passage
Okay.
from this book that I'm reading right now. I've been on a Toni Morrison kick this summer, so I'm currently reading The Bluest Eye. And I guess it's not summer anymore, it's officially fall. But in any case, I had not, I read her celebrated novel, Beloved, earlier a few months ago, and that was my first time reading the book. It was not my first time trying to read the book, though.
Oh.
I had tried to read it maybe 4 or 5 times previously, and I just couldn't enter it. I couldn't get past the first
Ooh.
page, sometimes. And then this particular season, I opened it this summer and I was like, oh, I just have to devour this, and so it kind of has catapulted me into some of her other writing. This, I'm just going to read right from the middle of the book. Out of context, but I love her language. They come from Mobile, Aiken, from Newport News, from Marietta, from Meridian, and the sound of those places in their mouth make you think of love. When you ask them where they're from, they tilt their heads and say, Mobile, and you think you've been kissed. They say Aiken, and you see a white butterfly glance off a fence with a torn wing. They say Nacogdoches, and you want to say, yes, I will. You don't know what those towns are like, but you love what happens to the air when they open their lips and let the names ease out. Meridian, the sound of it opens the windows of a room like the first 4 notes of a hymn. Few people can say the names of their hometowns with such sly affection, perhaps because they don't have hometowns, just places where they were born. But these girls soak up the juice of their hometowns, and it never leaves them. They are thin, brown girls who have looked long at hollyhocks in the backyards of Meridian, Mobile, and Baton Rouge. And like hollyhocks, they are narrow, tall, and still. Their roots are deep, their stalks are firm, and only the top blossom nods in the wind. They have the eyes of people who can tell what time it is by the color of the sky. Such girls live in quiet black neighborhoods where everybody is gainfully employed, where there are porch swings hanging from chains, where the grass is cut with a scythe, where rooster combs and sunflowers grow in the yards, and pots of bleeding heart, ivy, and mother-in-law tongue-line the steps and windowsills. Such girls have bought watermelon and snap beans from the fruit man's wagon. They have put in the window the cardboard sign that has the pound measure printed on each of 3 edges, 10 pounds, 25 pounds, 50 pounds, and no ice on the 4th. I'll just leave it at that.
It was beautifully written.
I
I'm not
know.
familiar with much of her work. I know her name and I know her significance, but
Yeah. Yeah, I just drool over her her descriptions, her lyricism.
yeah, it was like a song lyric.
Yeah, and that particular passage, I've lived in a lot of places, and I've always struggled with this idea of where am I from, what's my hometown. I was in Boston a few years ago with Darby, and he was sort of noticing how I was relating to the town, and he was like, I finally know where you're from. You're from Boston. And I thought that was interesting because I didn't move to Boston until I was 17.
Oh, uh-huh.
But then a couple years after that, I was in, for the first time in a very long time, I was in my hometown of New Jersey, where I also had not been born, but had lived for a good chunk of my childhood. And I was like, oh, maybe this is that book, I don't know if you've ever read it when you were a kid, but that book called Are You My Mother? Where you're like, are you my mother? Are you my mother? I don't remember anything about the book, but the title is Are You My Mother? And
Right, and there are a bunch of different animals or something.
I think so. Yeah, and the main character is looking, and I feel like I do that when I go to various towns that I've lived in. Like, are you my hometown? Are you my hometown? And so when I read this passage, I was like, oh, like there's something so solid about that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your hometown, Rachel?
Well, I was thinking I feel that way a little bit too because I was born in New Jersey, but my family hasn't lived there in 30 years. So I consider Austin my hometown. My family's been there for 25 years, but still at this point, I've lived in Nashville longer than I've lived anywhere.
Yeah.
But still, Austin is the place I see my family, and I know the roads. I guess, that's sort of, if you can get anywhere without having to look stuff up, which you can do now, which you couldn't do years ago, that maybe makes sense to call that like a hometown.
Yeah. That makes me think more than maybe Boston and that old town in New Jersey are sort of, maybe I'm like a bi-solar system. I don't just have one that I go around. I'm a bi-hometown system, you know? Because I don't need a map to get around either of those places, mostly.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, at this point, most of the things that I loved in Austin are gone. Um, if they were a business, it's a rare business that's still there. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's the same here in Nashville too.
Yeah. Yeah, I lived in Nashville for a blink, and I would definitely
I
need a
forgot
map.
that you had lived here briefly.
Yeah. And I've lived in LA now longer than I've lived anywhere else, and I definitely need a map everywhere I go here. And I don't know if that's just the dependency that I've developed on the, on the cell phone, or it's just a real sprawling city, and um, it takes up a lot of space, and there are a lot of roads to get from one place to the other, and a lot of traffic in the way, So, um, well, what do you have to play for us? Because we can't just talk all day. We got to enjoy some music.
Well, I think what I'm going to play is what I consider one of my more recent songs, which is now a couple of years old.
Yeah.
But I've never been what would be considered a prolific writer, writing a lot, writing all the time. Probably the time when I wrote the most was at Berkeley. But since then, it's been in many ways, it can be a really arduous process when I'm writing, which is often why I prefer to write alone, because I don't want to be surrounded by other people co-writing, when I'm in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And this song is an example of that. I wrote the bulk of this song when I was on an airplane in the middle seat. Tears streaming down my face with two very conservative looking men just sitting on the sides of me. I wrote this song sort of about the summer that never was, which is kind of like what happened this year to the summer that just ended. So this is called When You Held My Hand. We sat on the beach that summer, buried our toes in the sand. The blue ocean waves pulled us under in what felt like a dreamland. But my favorite part, yeah, my favorite part was when you held my hand. Got lost on our own adventure in the trails of a foreign land. No view could get any better than the one you were standing in. But my favorite part, yeah, my favorite part was when you held my hand. You never said you knew what love was, never said you could be my man. It's funny how the heart misleads us. Maybe one day I'll understand. No one except one another sees the world with the lens we have. Nobody sees what lies under the way you and I can. You never said you knew what love was, never said you could be my man. It's funny how the heart misleads us. Maybe one day I'll understand. No one except one another sees the world the way we do. Nobody looked at a lover the way that I did you. We sat on the beach that summer and we danced to the island band. No view could get any better than the one you were standing in. If I could take one thing it wouldn't be the sand or the memory of the sun setting on what we had, but how you held my heart when you held my hand. It was my favorite part. When you held my hand. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. When you held my hand.
Oh, gosh,
Thank
it's a
you.
sweet song.
Thanks.
It's so evocative, so much imagery, and it has just this I mean, I feel like I'm like right there on the beach, you know? Like I can feel the sand and yeah, lovely.
Thank you.
Is that one on a record right now?
No, that is in the process of being recorded right now. That's an
Oh, wow.
unreleased song, and I meant to release that as like a summer single this year.
Yeah.
And it kept sitting in people's inboxes. They weren't working on it. I would send it to them, and it just sat there for months.
Yeah.
And so I finally sort of, geared it towards people who were a little more eager to play on it and
Yeah.
mix it. And
Yeah, it's been I feel like this has definitely been a weird year. I don't know if everybody was just sort of shell-shocked for a while, like, what's email? Like, how do I work? How do I do the thing that I always do, you know? Good, I'm so glad. So do you have a date for that release, or?
I don't. I'm wondering if I need to wait for next summer. I don't know if you release a song like that in the bleak of winter. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So I've really been focusing on YouTube and releasing music with video, and a lot
Yeah.
of it's comedy and entertainment.
Yeah.
But this one needs to sneak in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's so lovely. Really lovely. I can't wait to hear the recorded version.
Thanks. Thank
Yeah,
you.
now it's in my head, and I was just listening this morning to a podcast called Broken Record, which is Rick Rubin and Malcolm Gladwell's.
Oh my goodness.
Kind of like liner notes for the digital age, I think is the maybe slogan or something. And I was listening to an interview between Rick Rubin and Brandi Carlile, and shoot, I was about to. What was it that you just said that was leading me to say something about that podcast episode?
Oh, about releasing a song about the beach and the bleak of winter.
Oh my gosh, the thought completely went out of my head. As I was describing the podcast, I started thinking about all the other things about the podcast. It's a great episode. You should listen to it. Oh goodness. What was I going to say about it though? You releasing songs, time, this song. Alas, forgive me, the thought is gone.
Okay.
But
Well-
great episode.
I'll listen to it and I'll probably be able to tell. That's why.
I know, you'll know right away, because you'll be like, oh yeah, that was what Arielle was going to be, because that's what we were talking about. It's topical. What was it that I was, Rick Rubin, Brandi Carlile, talking about?
The song sitting in an inbox for months.
Sitting in an inbox for months. Darn it, it's gone. God, that's irritating when that happens, right? Like it's like a little demon comes into your head and snatches the
I
thought
know.
away.
It disappears into the clouds.
There were so many great things on that podcast episode though, and I'm probably 3/4 of the way through, so I haven't finished listening to it. So maybe there's another little takeaway. There is one really great story that Brandy tells about Rick Rubin. He first tells about the first time he saw her play and how floored he was by it. And she then says, you know what, actually you had seen me play before. And then she tells the story of how he had heard her, like she tells exactly the other few times that they had met before this magnificent moment where he believed it was the first time he had seen her play. And so this is not related to what you were saying because I can't remember, but this is something that I find myself keep kind of thinking about, which is that, whether it's in romance or in business or whatever it is, it's like sometimes person A is, trying, and they keep meeting person B, like that's the person, that's an important person to me. But person B, it's like, they're it's just not the right moment yet. Like
Right.
the person A just has to keep kind of living and growing and change, becoming, I guess. And then there's a moment where person B is like, oh, this is like Brandy Carlisle was still evolving as an artist. And then that moment that he saw her on that stage, that he calls the first time that they met, for him, that's like the moment. Whereas for her, the moment had occurred, quite some time before.
She was probably like, oh my God, it's Rick Rubin.
Yeah. It's funny. I actually, my sweetheart and I actually have kind of a similar story, which is that in my mind, if I tell the story of our meeting, we met on July 4th. And if Darby tells the story of us meeting, we met in like April.
Oh.
So it's that sort of thing. So this song I'm going to play is a song that it's also unrecorded. Wrote it earlier this year, and it's still evolving. I notice that every time I play it, it's like slightly changed, and it's sort of like until it's on the record, we have that constant evolutionary process. Even after it's on the record, it can still evolve, but
Yes.
just like different, right? It's sort of a different thing. And so this song is really about hard times, but not during the hard time. It's about that time after the hard time when you look back and you're like, oh, I didn't think I could get through that. And look, I got through it and I'm fine. And it's called Fine by Yourself. Can you hear the guitar?
Yes.
Blink your eyes at the yellow stripe of sunrise through the curtain. When you stretch your limbs and an axe across the bed. When you rise without alarm clocks ringing, catch yourself in the kitchen singing, put daffodils and water on the shelf. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Doing fine by yourself. When you dust the bike and pump the tires, throw an apple in your bag. When you pedal down some streets you never knew. When you notice how the season's turning, notice how your heart's not yearning. In fact, you're feeling rather well. Ooh, 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 you're doing fine by yourself. Funny how you thought the world would end. strange to find instead. When the day is done and you're back at home with a jelly jar of wine, when you're curled up on the sofa with a book, you realize that for all your fears there's a tenderness you're finding here on the flip side of farewell. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You thought you'd never live to tell. Ooh, ooh, you're doing fine by yourself. You're doing fine by yourself.
That was lovely. I related to many parts of that song. That song was all about hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah. Long hindsight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that strange time when you're like, you're finally looking back and you're like, oh, that's right, I made it through. And, you know, I felt like I wrote this song before the lockdown, the quarantine started and all that stuff. But then very soon after that is when COVID hit in the United States and California really shut down Los Angeles. And I just found myself, even though I had not written it thinking at all about this time that we're in right now, I was finding a lot of solace in the song. Like, oh yeah, okay, we got through past times, we'll get through this time, you know, and at some point we'll look back and just be like, oh yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
You foresaw it, Arielle.
Just looking into the crystal balls over here.
LA is a magical place.
Rachel, I was actually planning on seeing you in person. I was planning on a trip to Nashville this fall.
Oh.
And I was going to kind of check in on my friends there and say hi to you and, you know, a couple other people and, you know, soak up the autumn leaves and all that stuff. And of course, you know, that's not happening. I'm going to be right here in Los Angeles soaking up the sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, but I hope to see you soon in person in
I
Nashville.
hope so too. You could still come if you want. We're open
Yeah.
at 25% capacity. So
25% capacity.
it might be going up this next week, but
Yeah.
yeah, I do hope you get to come here at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I will. Probably not this fall, but maybe 2021. I got my eye on you, 2021.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, no kidding.
The stuff people are calling me about and the calendar, people are just like going to town on 2021.
Yeah. So speaking of future plans, you were doing some live streams and then you stopped for a little while. And do you have any live stream shows? Can people catch you online anywhere?
I don't have a scheduled live stream as of right now.
Yeah.
I will be getting on at some point in the next several weeks, next month, but I don't have an official date. I'm sorry, I can't share that.
Okay.
Because I haven't determined.
We'll look into the Los Angeles crystal ball and see.
Okay. It will be at some point, though in the next few weeks, it will be visible on my Facebook. You know, I haven't really looked into live streaming elsewhere yet, but I'm slowly getting there too.
And your Facebook page for everybody who's watching is Rachel Solomon Music?
Yes, so it's Rachel, if you're on a desktop, you know, and you're doing / it's Rachel Solo Music.
Solo Music.
Yes.
Right. Okay, cool. I love how you do that too. SOLOMUSIC.
MU, yes, yeah.
Yeah, because your name also is just all the O's.
Yeah.
For your last name.
Yes, the real way. All the O's.
And you are playing live though, not just live streaming. You are actually, you have a couple of live shows coming up.
Yes. very few of them are going to be in the country as of right now. But yes, some actual live shows are coming down the pipeline to me, and
So awesome.
yeah.
Be safe. Have fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I will.
Sing and make people cry.
Yeah, I know. I hope that doesn't. Sometimes that happens, even in a bar.
You know what I would ask you to play if I were in a piano bar? I would ask for "The Search Is Over" by Survivor. The search is over. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
I don't know that song. Actually.
So I'm just giving you a heads up.
Okay. Yeah.
So for
that
future.
one I don't know.
There you go. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye to the show for today, for the week 21. It has been so awesome having you as a guest. I'm so excited that you were able to join.
Thank you so much, Arielle. Me too.
And next week we have, who do we have next week? Oh, Janine Halstead. So excited for that, week 22. And I hope that you all will join us, and do leave comments in the chat box, whether you're watching this live or on replay. And please do subscribe to Rachel Solomon on YouTube. Follow her on Facebook. Find her on Spotify. Her music is beautiful, and you will really enjoy it. And I'll see you next week. Tomorrow I will be right here on all the live stream places for Arielle's Acoustic Happy Hour, week 25. The theme is activism this week, and I'll share some resources and encourage you to share some resources for whatever kind of activism you are doing right now. And we will maybe write postcards together during the live stream, and check voter registration and all that stuff. So I hope to see you tomorrow, Friday, and Beth, Solomon, and Mark, thank you for being here and for watching. And thank you all for hanging out. See you next time.